Okay, I want to talk to you about factoring trinomials. And it's not very difficult, but it's a process. And we're going to move up into difficulty of equations. But first, we're going to start with a regular trinomial. So let's get started. In algebra, you learn how to use variables in equations to make decisions. These decisions are predicated upon problems you're attempting to solve in life. Learning mathematics is similar to learning to ride a bicycle. I can teach you week in and week out about riding a bicycle, but if you never get on a bicycle and attempt to put what you learn into action, you will never master riding a bicycle. The same with learning how to drive a car or learning anything else. Secondly, just giving you an equation and telling you to memorize it isn't very learning healthy. There are only a few equations you should just memorize. Most equations in your mathematics study you should be familiar with how they are derived. This helps in improving your understanding of mathematics. Sometimes in mathematics study, you may have to gain further mathematical knowledge before you can fully understand certain formula derivations, but most of the time this is not the case. I want to derive a few formula for you to demonstrate how knowing this information will improve your abilities in mathematics. These formulas come from Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. They are the quadratic formula and factoring the sum and difference of cubes. But before I teach you how to derive these equations, I must first teach you how to factor an equation. You really must learn this so you can know how factoring is done and the reason for it. Factoring is the more difficult method of solving a quadratic equation. The quadratic formula will make this a much easier task. After quadratics, then we will move on to factoring the sum and difference of cubes. Let's get started. What is a factor? A factor is one of the terms in a multiplication. Here we have 2 times y, 2y, 2 times y. In mathematics, that's 2 times y. 2 dot y, that's 2 times y. Parentheses 2, close parentheses, parentheses y, close parentheses, that's 2 times y. Sometimes you see 2 parentheses y, close parentheses, that's 2 times y. Sometimes you see parentheses 2, close parentheses times y, okay? All of these are factors. That's a multiplication. Anytime we have a multiplication, those 2 terms in the multiplication, or those terms in the multiplication is a factor. In the above expression, the quantities being multiplied are called factors, and the result after multiplication is called a product. Okay. Let's start by factoring a trinomial. A trinomial has 3 terms. X squared plus bx plus c is a trinomial. They are the 3 terms. They are x squared plus bx plus c. And to factor some trinomials, you will use the pattern of multiplying 2 binomials, okay? For example, x plus 2 parentheses times parentheses x plus 3. These are 2 factors, and we multiply them together. We get this trinomial because we factored this trinomial, okay? So let's see what this does, okay? Let's multiply these factors. So when you have 2 trinomials like that, you do first term times first term plus first term times second term. Then you get second term times first term plus second term times second term. Or how many terms you have. You keep going. You could have 3 terms in here, 4 or 5, or how many you have, but you do that in that order. Okay, so let's do that. X times x plus x times 3 plus x times 3 plus 2 times x plus 2 times x plus 2 times 3 plus 2 times 3. Okay, then we say x times x was x squared because the base is the same, so we add the exponents. And the exponents are 1 in each one of these x's. So 1 plus 1 is 2. Plus 3x times 3, well, we always write the number in front of the variable. So 3x plus 2x plus 2x plus 3 times 2. Well, 3 times 2 is what? 6. Okay. So now we go down again and we have our factors is equal to x squared plus we add the middle terms, 5x plus 6. And you see we have our original equation, x squared plus 5x plus 6. Let's observe this process and look for a pattern, because that's what mathematics is, patterns. And if you look for, it solves patterns, and if you look for a pattern, you can solve this equation, okay? Here's our previous factors, okay? And our factors were x plus 2 times x plus 3, and it gave us our trinomial. Let's look for a pattern. This time, I'm going to replace the 2 and the 3 with m and n, okay? Rather than have numbers there, I want to see what happens if I put m and n in there. So we have x times x, x times x, x times n, x times n, m times x, m times x, m times n, m times n, okay? Now, we do the same thing we did before. X times x, well, that's x squared. We move the number in front of the x, which is n this time. So n times x plus m times x plus m times n plus m times n. Okay. Now we take and add our middle terms. Well, our middle terms, each one of them is multiplied by an x. So we factor out the x right there. So we take the x and factor it out because we can tell it's factored, because if we multiply again, we get our multiplication process here. X times n and x times n. Since we factored out the x, we have m plus x times m plus n times x. Okay. Now, so we have b is equal to, in our original equation, we have b is equal to m plus n, and c is equal to m times n. Okay. So, over here, b is 5, and we have m plus n is equal to 5. c is equal to 6, and we have m plus n, m times n is equal to 6. So m is equal to 3, and n is equal to 2. It doesn't matter whether you call m 2 and n 3. So, to determine m and n, find the factors of c, right there, 6, and use a guess and check strategy to find which pair of factors has a sum of b. So what we're essentially looking for is two numbers that when we multiply them together, we get 6, and when we add them, we get 5. That's 3 and 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 plus 2 is 5. Don't worry whether you got that or not. It takes a few seconds to sink in, and you usually learn that from pictures. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. Let's look at a factor when b and c are both positive. Okay. Here's our trinomial, and we want to factor this. In this trinomial, b equals 6 and c equals 8. Both are positive, plus, plus. Now you need to find two numbers whose sum is 6, whose product is 8. Whose sum is 6 and whose product is 8. So two numbers that you multiply together to get 8, and when you add those two numbers together, you get 6. So let's draw a table. Factors of 8. Factors mean two numbers we multiply, because a factor is a multiplication. Okay? So the factors of 8 are 1 and 8. 1 times 8 is 8, which that's great. That gives us 8. But when we add 8 and 1, we get 9. and we want 6, so that's no good. So 2 times 4 is our factors. 2 times 4 is 8, and if we add 2 and 4, we get 6, and that's what we want, 6. So m is equal to 2, and n is equal to 4. Okay. So when we add our m and n, we get 6, and when we multiply our m and n, we get 8. And that's what we wanted. So now our factors are x squared plus 6x plus 8 is equal to x plus m times x minus plus n. We write the pattern, okay? And then we plug in m and n, okay? And then we check to see if that's correct. So let's multiply our numbers. X times x, x times x, x times 4, x times 4, 2 times x, 2 times x, 2 times 4, 2 times 4. And then we come down, x times x is x squared. Move the 4 in front of the x. We have 2x. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay. We have x squared. 4x plus 2x is 6x. And we have plus 8. And that's our original equation. So these two are our factors. X plus 2 and x plus 4 are our factors of this trinomial. Let's try another. When b is negative and c is positive, okay? We want to factor x squared minus 10x plus 16. In this trinomial, b is minus 10 and c is plus 16. Now you need to find two numbers whose sum is minus 10 and whose product is 16. So let's draw us a table. And the factors are of 16. Our factors are our multiplication process to get 16 is. We pick minus 1 times minus 16 gives us a plus 16. Minus times a minus is a plus. So minus 1 times minus 16 gives us plus 16. That's great. Minus 16, minus 16, minus 1, minus 16 gives us minus 17. We need a minus 10. So that's no good. Minus 2 times a minus 8 is a plus 16. Minus times a minus is a plus. Then when we add these two, minus 2 minus 8 is minus 10. And that's what we're looking for. Another term factor for 16 is minus 4 and minus 4. Minus 4 times minus 4 is plus 16. But when we add minus 4 minus 4, minus 4 plus minus 4, we get a minus 8. We need a minus 10. So we say m is equal to minus 2, right there, and n is equal to minus 8. Okay. When we add them, we get minus 10, as we should. And when we multiply them, we get plus 16, as we should. So then, when we write out our equation, we write out our pattern. X minus 2 times x minus 8. Okay. And then we check. X times x is x times x. X times minus 8 is x times minus 8 is minus x times 8. Okay. And we have minus 2 times x, minus 2 times x, minus 2 times minus 8, minus 2 times minus 8. Then we do the multiplication. We have x squared, move the 8 in front of the x minus x. And we have minus 2x. Minus 2 times minus 8 is plus 16. Then we add up our middle terms. We have x squared minus 8x minus 2x is minus 10x plus 16. And our two factors are x minus 2 and x minus 8. Okay, let's try another. When b is positive and c is negative, okay, we have x squared plus x minus 12. We want to factor this, okay. In this trinomial, b is equal to plus 1 and c is equal to minus 12. Now you need to find two numbers whose sum is 1 and whose product is minus 12. Since b is positive, this means the larger factor is positive. Okay? So let's break up a table. And here are all the factors of 12. We have 1 times minus 12. We have minus 1 times 12. We have 2 times minus 6. We have minus 2 times plus 6. We have 3 times minus 4. And we have minus 3 times 4. And if we look at all of these, the only one fits the bill is minus 3 and 4. Minus 3 times 4 leaves a minus 12. And minus 3 plus 4 equals a plus 1. So m is equal to minus 3 and n is equal to 4. And when we add them, we get a plus 1. And we multiply them, we get a minus 12. So we write out our pattern, included minus 3 and plus 4. And we check, do the multiplication. And we come up with our original trinomial, x squared plus x minus 12. Therefore, our factors are x minus 3, x plus 4. Okay, when b is negative and c is negative. When now in our trinomial, they're both negative. Okay? In this trinomial, b is negative and c is negative 18. b is negative 7 and c is negative 18. Now you need to find two numbers whose sum is minus 7 and whose product is minus 18. So we do a table again. And the factors of 18 are 1 times minus 18 gives us minus 18. Minus 1 times 18 gives us minus 18. And a 2 times minus 9 gives us minus 18. But when we add 2 plus minus 9, we also get minus 7, which is our key to our equation. So when we multiply these two, we get minus 18. When we add 2 and minus 9, we get minus 7. So that's our factors. So m is equal to 2 and n is equal to minus 9. And when we add them, we get minus 7. And when we multiply them, we get minus 18. Okay. We write out our pattern. We input our numbers. Then we check. We do the multiplication. And we come up with our original equation. Therefore, our factors are x plus 2, x minus 9, times x minus 9. These are our factors. So essentially, we factored this trinomial. Let's try another. In this one, we're going to look for the solution. It's called, and we're going to use the zero product property. If the zero product property is this: if the product of two factors is 0, then at least one of the factors must be 0, or both of them 0. So let's look at our equation. Here's our original equation: x squared plus 5x equals 6. Okay. So we rewrite this equation so one side is equal to 0. Now we have an equation we've been using already. X squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 0. Okay? So we're going to factor this. And we go through this factor procedure like we did before. I'm not going to show you on this one. I'm going to let you do it. And we get x minus 1 times x plus 6 equal to 0 after we factor it. So the zero product property says if the product of two factors is 0, then at least one of the factors must be 0. So is x minus 1 0 or x plus 6 0? Or maybe they're both 0. I don't know. So let's set them equal to 0. So x minus 1 equals 0 or x plus 6 equals 0. Okay. Then we solve for x. Move the number to the other side. When we cross the equal sign, we change the sign. So x equals plus 1. And for the x plus 6, we move plus 6 to the other side. We change the sign. So x equals minus 6. The solution is, so therefore the solution set is 1 minus 6. Let's continue. So our original equation is x squared plus 5x equals minus 6. The solution we said is 1 and minus 6. Let's check that. So let's put 1 in where x is. So 1 squared plus 5 times 1 equals 6. 5 plus 1 plus 5 equals 6. 6 plus 6 equals 6. So that checks. X plus 5x equals 6. Let's put in minus 6. Minus 6 squared plus 5 times minus 6 equals 6. Minus 6 squared is 6 times 6 is 36. That's a plus 36. So any negative number squared is plus. So that's 36. 5 times minus 6 is minus 30. 36 minus 30 equals 6. 6 equals 6. So that checks. And that's it. So now you've learned how to solve a trinomial. And we're going to move on to more difficult trinomials. This time, rather than have the trinomial, the number in front of the x squared 1, we're going to make that another number, or any number. And we're going to solve that trinomial. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something. Until next time.